Hello and welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast for marketers, small business owners, and those of you taking your skills into the digital age. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke, and this podcast is brought to you by Digital Training Institute. Coming up in today's show, I ask my special guests, Jenny Brennan and Paul O'Mahony, how social media has changed their lives, why Santa Claus has embraced social media, and how it's changing his life. Shoutouts to 3 events I have in my diary for the first quarter of 2017. We take viewers' questions on how to use social media for business, and JSB Talks Digital, the vlog. Yes, I'm going front of screen. JSB's calling. As you can see, I am doing more than podcasting today. I'm hosting a live cast on Facebook, so a big welcome to everyone who is tuning in from across the world. Of course, I've got a big viewership, yeah? The recording of this podcast will go out next week. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we will be talking social media and how it has changed all our lives. So please comment below and pose your questions to us, or contribute and tell us your social media story. I've been using social media for business and personally for 9 years now, and has now become my number one source of business. What would you say if I told you that one tweet resulted in me keynoting at a conference in Phoenix, Arizona, and selling my books to the Pentagon? Or that my podcast resulted in me being hired by the EPP group in the EU Parliament? Or that I won 80% of my business from my social media activities? Would you consider that's possible for you? Well, let's discuss this very topic right now with my special guests. Interview. So let me introduce my guests who are sitting pretty on my left and right side. So I am thrilled to have my original and now my real life best friend, Jenny Brennan. You're welcome, Jenny.
Thanks, Joanne. It's lovely to be here.
I'm also joined by a man I've heard so much about, but I've never met. So I'm taking a little bit of a risk and bring him into my podcast and my Facebook Live.
You are.
For the very first time. But I'm thrilled to have you, Paul O'Mahony, the Paul O'Mahony, on JSB Talks Digital. You're very welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So Jenny, Santa, sorry, my third guest. How can I forget? I've been so excited about this for so long. Santa, you are very welcome to JSB Talks Digital. Can you hear us there from the North Pole?
Hello.
Ho, 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 Santa, how are you?
How are you, Joanne?
Oh, I am very good, thank you. I am so pleased that you have joined us. Listen, I have spent the past 3 weeks going via your agent, Mrs. Claus, to have you on the show. And I really appreciate that this is an extremely busy time of year. I know Paul O'Mahony is extremely busy, but he's certainly not as busy as you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. We're really, really busy up here down in the North Pole, getting all the toys ready for the boys and girls for Christmas.
Well, Santa, hold on the line, have your mulled wine. I told Mrs. Claus to have a little mulled wine there for you, because I'm going to speak to Jenny first.
Oh, we do. We have the mulled wine, and we have the nice mince pies that Mrs. Claus has made earlier on for us this morning.
Okay, thank you, Santa.
I hope he doesn't have too much mulled wine. He's got to drive in a couple of weeks.
Jenny, let me start with you. You are wearing your Agora Pulse t-shirt, and 2016 was a really big year for you. But tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about Jenny Brennan.
Yeah, sure. This is the second time I've been on your podcast, actually, so I feel very honoured, Joanne, to be here, especially in the studio as well, and see what goes on behind the JSB brand. Very impressive. I am Director of Inside Sales at Agora Pulse, and Agora Pulse is a social media tool platform for agencies and for companies all over the world managing multiple social media channels all in the one place. So everything from interactions that are happening with your brand directly to your reporting, engagement, everything that we know that's important in order to keep your visibility out there and build relationships.
So we know from research and even talking to other social media managers, The biggest difficulty that they have is not pushing out content or managing their time. It's actually reporting, but Agorapulse has a really great reporting function.
Yeah, it does. So basically how our tool works is that for all the social channels that are actually, or social profiles that are actually connected, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, we do reporting for all three of those. And we measure everything from audience, awareness, engagement, all the way through to your team management as well, which obviously is really important to know who's doing what. And yeah, we give you everything from those big picture metrics down to, you know, who are the most important people to our brand, who do we need to be talking to, who do we need to be listening to. So,
because let's face it, a CEO just wants to see the metrics that matter on one sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. And they want to be able to see it in a way that they actually understand, because I think as social media professionals, we have a habit of, we know everything and understand, well, not everything, but we know and understand a lot. And sometimes when you're talking to somebody who's at CEO level or management or whatever, they have a lot going on in their life or, you know, in their job anyway. So, yeah, the reports make it really, really easy for the person doing the job and then for the person who actually needs to digest that information.
So you took up the role this year of Director of Prospect Happiness?
Yeah, that's what they call me, Director of Prospect Happiness. I'm the person, I suppose, at the front line who meets with people, and I always kind of liken it to, if somebody was to call to my hall door, I would open the hall door and give them a cup of coffee and have a chat about Agorapulse. And that's how I do my demos with people all over the world. So the internet has allowed me to work from Clonbur in County Galway and deal with people, as I say, in the United States, all across Europe, who are looking for a social media solution. So it's really fantastic.
She's also the Director of Inside Sales. It's a really important job, brings in the money. But let's take a step back. You were self-employed before you joined Agorapulse this year, and you are a Facebook ads expert, and I think you were a little bit ahead of your time because you had been doing that for 5 years. Bring us back to that time.
Well, 5 years ago, I actually started a business as a virtual assistant as a result of just being completely bored out of my brains, to be honest. I'd spent 3.5 years kind of not working. I'd walked out of corporate. I was burnt out, you know, I was 29, burnt out, and decided I wanted to just put on the wellies and have my lovely kids and just be at home. So I did that for 3.5 years. But then, you know, the brain starts to kind of need a little bit more stimulation and whatever. And but I didn't want to leave the home. So I wanted to find this balance where I could still be a really good mum, but earn my own money, have my own career. And so that's where I started. That evolved over 2 years. I travelled over to San Diego to Social Media Marketing World, which I know you were at this year. And building relationships over there with Emmerich Erno, our CEO, John Loomer, Mary Smith. I swear I'm not name dropping, but fantastic people. And I found the social media industry, you know, they have their arms wide open to help you to do more, because I think the way we see it in our industry is the world is massive. There's opportunity for everyone. There's more than enough to go around. So that led me into the Facebook ad space, which I was doing for the last kind of 2.5 years. But my real passion is people, and I love selling.
Okay. And then this year, you also launched a campaign, which I love, and I also need to probably join, called Foxy for 40.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Paul, do you need to join that campaign?
No panic on that.
Yeah, well, the Foxy for 40 hashtag kind of happened, not by mistake, I suppose. This summer, I was 39. We were out in the United States on our holidays. And, you know, like most women in my situation with kids and busy and trying to look after the whole world, I wasn't looking after myself. You know, I wasn't following a good diet. I wasn't exercising. I was probably having too many vinos in the evenings to relax. And I'm very honest about that. But I knew something had to change. I was very concerned about my health. I've already had diabetes and pregnancy and things. And I just said, you know what, you're coming up to 40 next year. So I have a few friends of mine who were a huge influence. They're into the bodybuilding scene, and they really inspired me because they had completely transformed their lives, their bodies, how they felt about themselves, and it had a huge impression on their whole life. And so taking on this role in Agorapulse, I knew it was going to be busy, it's going to be challenging, and we're a growing company, and I need to be on top of my game. I need to be able to get up early in the morning and be bright and bushy-tailed. So yeah, I basically signed up for some personal training at NCC Fitness in Cong, which is my local GAA club, with Shane Ward, who wouldn't come out now and be live on a podcast, but he's been fantastic, really, really helpful, and just getting me into the whole mindset of changing a lifestyle.
So tell us about the hashtag then. So you're using social media to tell your story daily across all the social networks.
Yeah.
And you're inspiring other women, because I'm inspired, not that I've done anything about it.
We'll get you there. Well, I think a lot of it really using social media for me was about just staying accountable. You know, I live out in Clonbur in County Galway, which is a beautiful part of the world under a mountain. And, you know, you're on your own. You don't have the social interaction. You're not in an office with people. You know, I don't go places where I've got this accountability, and I thought social media would be a great way to do it. And as a result, the community is growing. We have a Facebook group called Foxy Fitness, and there's lots of women in there and a few men, and it's really just about people who are really passionate about fitness. And speaking to one of the members recently, she said, it's so lovely to have a place where you can talk about your fitness and not feel like you're annoying everybody, because you do, you know, get to that point where you're like, I need to change up my posts.
Foxy for 40, so you're going to be 40 next July.
Yeah.
So what happens when you turn 40? Is the foxiness going to continue?
Oh, the foxiness is definitely going to continue. Yeah, I mean, even I was in the States recently with my mom, who's, I won't say my mom's age, but she's older than me. And I was even kind of coming up with hashtags for her, and she started with a personal trainer. So it's having an impression on lots of people, and it's positivity. I've had to deal with, you know, the kind of, you get a lot of negativity as well, and there's no point in me saying that it's all fabulous, because, you know, there are some people who are like, oh, what are you at? Why would you share it? But the positivity outweighs the negatives, and it's really great journey to be on. It's great fun meeting lots of new people.
Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to turn to Paul.
Interview.
So Paul O'Mahony, I have been chasing you down on Twitter for 3 months. Yeah,
Stalker alert.
trying to get you on this podcast. Yeah, but you've always been too busy. Okay, usually in a different country every time that you respond to my tweet, but you're very good at responding. You're in Galway, and I didn't even know that you lived in Galway.
I know.
I could have gone across the bridge.
I was afraid to tell you. I was afraid. Why do you think I stay out of the country so often?
Hey, if anybody can get Santa Claus, it's JSB.
There
There you go. So you're very welcome to my show.
Thank you for having me. Genuinely, it's an honour.
You're very kind. So tell me about Paul O'Mahony. 5 times in 1 week, a fortnight ago, I had people ask me, have you met Paul O'Mahony? Have you heard him speak? Do you know him? And I'm like, well, I know him from Twitter. I know him from, you know, online. Tell our listeners and our viewers about Paul O'Mahony. Give us your backstory.
Sure. So actually, I was in a corporate environment as well. I wouldn't say I was burnt out, but I kind of made a decision at same age, 30, 2009, that I was done with it. No idea how I was going to do it. I went to an event in Dublin, actually, which talked about how to make money online. And that was kind of the first time I'd ever been introduced to making money on the internet. 3 months later, I think, I went to a Tony Robbins event in New York. Please don't take this advice, but this is what I did. I went to the event. I walked on fire. I went from being one of the most cynical and skeptical people there to actually texting my boss and quitting my job with no plan other than fake it until you make it, which isn't a good strategy. If that's your only strategy.
So should I go home, get some coals out, walk on fire, and maybe ring myself and leave my home job?
Yeah, if that works for you, sure. So yeah, and I quit my job 3 months later. My biggest problem was I couldn't choose what business area to get to focus on. And I'd never been in business before. 9 years of comfort of kind of corporate environment, which I enjoyed, I have to say. So I had signed up for 3 different programs to learn about how to make money on the internet. Hadn't really done anything with them until I woke up mid-July 2009 in a sweat, saying this faking it until you make it doesn't really work unless you have something to back it up. So I missed all that bit that Tony talked about, like learning things, adding value, helping others. I skipped all of that. I just planned on faking it. And mid-2009, woke up completely broke, lost a lot of money on the stock market, actually all I had. And then it was a case of I need to make this internet stuff work. And I focused on Twitter, not because I was on it already or anything like that. It was because I received an email about a girl in the UK who was making 3,000 sterling a month from Twitter while in a full-time job. I said, good enough for me. Twitter's going to be my business area, even though I don't know anything about it. And I set a target of getting 1,000 followers in a week, and ended up getting 7,000 followers in a week. There was nothing magical about it.
How did you do it? You didn't buy them.
No, that wasn't even heard of back then. I just literally followed 14,000 people. Follow, 14,000 times. That's all.
You're going to drive Owen mad by hitting the table.
Yeah, but people at home can get that. It was that annoying.
Yeah. Okay, so you choose Twitter as your platform of choice.
Yeah.
You get 3,000 followers.
7,000 followers in a week.
7,000 followers in a week.
In 7 accounts.
So how do you then convert that into cash?
So yeah, this was the amazing thing. The third of those workshops that I bought in Dublin was on that following weekend, and it was about how to sell other people's products or services, which was ideal, seeing as I had none of my own. And I kind of had a lot of hang-ups about it. Like I didn't want to sell other people's stuff unless I tested it first and all this kind of stuff. But the coach I had that weekend explained to me, there's something called Google where you can type in a product name and reviews after it and find out exactly how good or bad it is. I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. It's what we do when we buy a book on Amazon. So on the first night of the workshop, he said, send out some tweets and put in a link to a product. And it was a software actually that flashes up your personal goals on the screen every 5 seconds. It's called Subliminal Power. It was so fast that you don't really see it.
Was this somebody else's product?
Somebody else, absolutely.
So was this like an affiliate link?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So it was, and the problem was I went to the coach and I said, well, that's fine, but I've never sent a tweet. So I just kind of show you where I was at. I just said press follow 14,000 times. That was about it. He said, well, I'm not going to tell you how to write a tweet. Figure it out for yourself. So I sent out a tweet. And I remember I was staying in my aunt's flat that her rental flat in Arundel, two hours outside London, so I couldn't actually afford a hotel. So I got up the next morning, checked PayPal, and for the first time ever in PayPal, I saw positive numbers, $44.20.
Nice.
While I slept. I was like, oh my God, I need to sleep more. That was my first thought process. I'm making more money while I sleep than while I'm awake. So that was kind of it for me. I couldn't believe it.
So once you saw the dollars
Yeah.
in the bank account, then that was the moment that I guess your mindset shifted and you believed that you could do it.
Well, my first question the next day when I walked in was, if it's this easy, why isn't everybody else doing it? And Mark, who became my coach and mentor, said to me, that one question is the question that stops pretty much everybody else taking any kind of action that might get them out of the situation they're in financially.
So how has that led you then to be, a very sought after speaker and traveling, most of the year abroad? How did that leapfrog happen?
So at that event, that organizer, he said, you know what you've just done there. You've made money from Twitter. He said, everyone talks about it, about branding and this kind of stuff. One of the things I kind of say is branding is what you get when you don't get what you want, which is basically getting money from, ultimately CFOs want to see, show me the money on the bottom line. And he said, we can package that up and make that, teach companies, teach individuals how to do that. I can show you how to make millions from that one skill. And I said, well, that sounds good to me. And 4 months later, I'd made my first $10,000 in a month, and that doubled the following month. And then it kind of started to snowball.
All with affiliate marketing?
All with affiliate, and very quickly created my own product on Twitter specifically. And the thing about it was I was kind of pitched as the person in the audience who actually did something and started making money. So people, even at that event with Mark, he had lots of multimillionaire speakers. But once they heard about my $45, they said, I want to learn from him.
Yes, they related more to you.
Exactly, because if he can do it, I can do it. I still try not to let that affect my ego, but yeah.
So I described you as the digital millionaire. And like when I sent you over the graphic for the promo, I said, is this okay? I read your, 200-word bio, but can I shorten it to digital millionaire? And you said, yeah, that's okay. And I was like, wow, he's really cool. He's really cool with that,
Sure.
So
I've no problem with abundance. Keep it coming this direction. There's never been more money in the world. That's kind of the funny thing about what I talk about is so I do workshops on setting up online businesses, monetizing what your knowledge, or if you don't have your own skill set, how to use other people's. And more the conversation became more and more about money and wealth and the issues that adults have about money and wealth. And I used to always have to start my talk with, well, look, I'm not a qualified financial advisor, but these are my thoughts. So last year I actually did the qualifications just to become a QFA, so officially have the credibility, because people are actually there ultimately to learn about making money. And it's the same with businesses. It's not because generally I find, and there's definitely a scale here, but it's generally that people aren't passionate about social media so much. They're passionate about their business. They're passionate about their family. They're passionate about what they want to go achieve in their lives. And social media happens to be a vehicle that some of us are using really well, and people would like to jump on board and figure out, how that works.
So tell me about your speaking life. So it's changed you. Obviously, you're self-employed. You've created your own products, and you get to travel. But tell me about the speaking element, because I'm fascinated about that.
Okay, so very early on, from the very first time I saw the speakers in Dublin, I said, I kind of fancy that looks nice. But the problem was all of them had these stories like rags to riches, they were born in this hospital in London, ended up in a reed basket and sent up the River Thames and raised by wolves and all this kind of stuff. This is mental. And if I ever get on stage, my story's way too normal. So I wanted to get on stage, and I held an event with my business partner at the time, and that's how I first spoke on stage, because nobody else would have me on stage. At that point, I had nothing much to speak about.
Create your own stage.
Create your own stage. And my story was exactly that, a piss take of the other speakers, and people really warmed to it. I actually haven't changed it to this day. And then I just showed them the simple steps of what I did around making money, specifically me, with social media, and how they could apply those skills. And then I guess what people warm to outside of Ireland, which is we were just talking about this morning, is we've such a massive advantage once we leave even maybe a 10-mile radius of Ireland. We're absolutely the world's favourites. Mm-hmm. And even though if people won't remember my name, it's the funny Irish guy. That's all they need to know or to hear. And they say, I don't even know sometimes what I'm investing in, but I'm investing in the Irish.
So the home audience is tough.
I wouldn't say they're tough, but I decided straight away that I was going to break away from the Irish market, because I know how we are. We'd much rather listen to somebody that we've never heard of from the US rather than somebody that could be from a couple of towns over, because they couldn't know anything of any value.
Yes.
Could they?
Sometimes it's the Irish psyche. Yeah. Okay, well, Paul, we'll come back to you in a minute.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And it's time for interview number 3.
Interview.
Santa Claus, are you still on the line?
Oh, I'm still here.
So, what did you think of Jenny and Paul's stories?
Well, aren't they good boys and girls, huh? Ho, 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 ho.
So, Santa Claus, no offence to my beautiful other guests on my left and right, but I have had sleepless nights waiting for this interview with you. How are you and Mrs. Claus? Are you stressed, or are you feeling you're feeling good?
Oh, we're okay. We're very busy. It's our busiest time of year. It's all fun.
And what about the elves? I hope you're not overworking them. We have an EU working time directive in this part of the world.
Oh, they're working away. They're happy as Larry. Oh, yes, and Larry's there as well.
So I'm so delighted that you took time to join me, Santa, but I really wanted to explore how social media has changed your life and your business, because this is the theme of JSB Talks Digital, the podcast today. So, I grew up in the 80s, and I remember the time without social media. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for the red and blue BMX that you gave me in 1985. That was like my favourite Christmas of all time. So I just wanted to drop that in.
Oh, you're welcome. You and your brother did have fun on those matching bikes. You were a bit of a tomboy, Joanne, weren't you?
I was.
But you almost killed yourself when you were coming down from the top cottage in Dowlings there. Do you still have the scar on your forehead to prove it?
Santa, I still do. I still do. Yeah, head over heels. Pulled the front brakes coming down a hill, and I still have that scar from the red and blue BMX. Tell me, I've been studying your social networks, of course, doing some research for the show, and on Facebook you have 946,194 likes on the Facebook page North Pole HQ, and on Twitter at Official Santa. I think Paul O'Mahony might have more followers than you, 413,200. So you've been experimenting with Facebook Live and GoPros. How have you found social media for your business, Santa?
Oh, well, you know, yes, you're right, my dear. We do have a lot of followers and we do have a lot of likes on our pages, our social media, you know, and social media has really changed the way Santa does his work and the way we communicate with people. I am now able to see boys and girls from behind being good from not just my Robins, but by their mummies and daddies' postings about how good or bad their behavior has been on social media. But I suppose most of all, I love being able to share updates from our work here in the North Pole. And we record videos with the elves and the reindeers, of course, and me reading letters and Mrs. Claus keeping the house going. Shh, I mustn't say that. I also love to read all the messages I get on Facebook and on Twitter from everyone right across the world.
Isn't that remarkable, Santa? Because I remember when I wrote to you in the 80s, like, you didn't write back to me. But, you know, it's okay. Now you have social media and you have the opportunity to read all the messages and maybe send some messages back. Now, tell me, will you be sharing footage of you leaving the North Pole on Christmas Eve on Facebook Live? Because I think that's a really good social media opportunity. Not to give you any advice, of course.
Oh, well, we thank you. That we've already got plans in place, and we have all the GoPros out, and all the elves are all there with their phones, and they're going to be using Facebook Live to show everyone me going off on my big trek around the world to deliver all the Christmas presents for all the boys and girls.
Now, Santa, in advance of this podcast and Facebook livecast, I reached out to my community, you know, my big community online, and I said, would you like to ask Santa any questions? Because I'm going to have him on the show. And I have a few. Would you be willing to answer them?
Oh, of course I would.
So who manages your social networks? Like, you know, I manage my own. You know, I'm not big enough to have somebody else manage them for me. But who manages your social networks?
Well, as you can imagine, Santa's very busy all year round, getting all the boys and girls' toys ready and making sure that the reindeers and all are doing okay. So we have one of our elves who manages our social media. He's called Corey, and we like to call him Digi-Elf.
Oh, how cool. Can I get Digi-Elf on the podcast sometime?
Oh, you can indeed. You can indeed. He's very busy at the moment, but, you know, we have to keep going.
I don't think he's as busy as Paul O'Mahony. You know, Paul O'Mahony flies around the world and he doesn't have a sleigh. So, Another question. How do you feel about people creating fake profiles? Because during my research, I saw so many fake Santa Claus profiles on Twitter and Facebook. Does that upset you?
Well, it does. But, you know, all the mummies and the daddies, they all know that the real Santa networks are the North Pole HQ.
And Santa, do you respond to DMs and instant messages?
Oh, yes, I try to respond to as many as I can. Sometimes I don't get to them all, but we do have a little Corey who will help us out there and let us know.
And Santa, do you ever get trolled? And how do you deal with it if you do?
Oh, we do. But you know, it's all about being authentic and being the ones that answer back. You know, and being able to figure it out and say, yes, we're okay. We know who you are. We do what we do best.
Now, Santa, I have a 7-year-old son called Bobby B, who's also been on this podcast talking about his favourite social network, Snapchat. And Bobby has 3 questions for you. Is it okay if I ask you?
Oh, yes, we do. I know Bobby. Bobby's a lovely little boy.
So the first question is, Santa, where did you get your sleigh?
Oh, well, the sleigh is quite old now. The elves made it back in 1945 in the North Pole workshop. But we do repairs on it every year. As you can imagine, it gets a lot of use on Christmas Eve. And this year, we even fitted a new blade to it.
Fantastic. Next question, Santa. What would you like Bobby B to leave out for you on Christmas Eve? He told me to tell you that don't ask for any of Mum's cooking because she can't cook really well. So he's suggesting maybe mini mince pies, rich tea biscuits, which are his favourite, milk and carrots for Rudolph and the reindeer. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds lovely. Oh, yes, that would be lovely. I think rich tea biscuits would be nice. I don't get many of those.
You can't beat a McVitie, Santa, honestly. We'll leave a few extra out for you. And finally, from Bobby B. Bobby B has a big sister called Sophie. You might know Sophie, and they share the same birthday, of course, but there's 14 years difference. So Sophie's 21, but she's still writing her letter to you this year, and Bobby wants to know, is Sophie Burke on the good list or the naughty list? Because Bobby B is confident he's on the good list, but he's worried that Sophie might not be. So what do you think?
Well, I did see her fighting with her brother a few times, but she is very kind to him, and many, many times. So she is on the good list, so you can tell Bobby that.
Yay! Thank you, Santa. And I have just one more question for you. How do you think social media has changed your working life, and how is it bringing cheers to the children of the world?
Oh, I've been able to create more Santa dreams by showing children behind the door of my house and how to see Mrs. Claus and the elves at work in the North Pole. Santa is a very special part of Christmas for young and old, and I can't think of a better job.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Santa. Please stay on the line because we've got about another 10 minutes off the show. And Bobby B will be so excited when he comes out of school later on and he watches this replay on Facebook. So thank you so much. Maybe we should ask, is Jenny and Paul on the good list or the naughty list? And what about me, of course?
Oh, you are always on the good list for all the good work you do for all the people and helping them with their social media.
Thank you, Santa.
Thanks, Santa.
Okay, so that's interviews. I have some questions from the community. Teresa Rock, actually, asks a question. Are Facebook groups still useful, and what's the best way to make them work?
Well, Facebook groups, they were very good about a year ago. Where I would use them, there's a couple of ways. If you'd have zero budget whatsoever to run ads, but you've got a bit of time, groups can be quite effective. But you've got to filter through the noise. So, no matter what business area you're in, one of the things I would say is don't specifically jump into the group that is talking about that topic, because oftentimes you find salespeople and marketers in there. So if you want to get the most out of a group in that way, I would look for the same people, but find them in another group where they would have similar interests. And in that way, it's much easier to approach them, and you don't have as much competition going on there. The other good use for groups that I have at the moment is rather than specifically looking for clients or people to do business with, is you can kind of run a private membership site from it. And Facebook groups is a really good way of doing that. Even though you can have obviously public ones, the private ones I find can be very useful, and you can just set up kind of membership programs where people pay a monthly fee to maybe Foxy for 40, something along those lines. When she decides, you know what, I'm giving away too much for free here, you can actually turn that into some kind of a group that people can pay on a more regular basis. So they're kind of the two of the uses that I would have.
Yeah, it's a great way to cut through the noise, Jenny. And you have your Foxy for 40 group, or your Foxy Fitness group, rather?
Foxy Fitness is the group, yeah. The thing about groups, I think I've seen lots of people, like as Paul is saying, use them in different ways, whether it's for your club or for your organisation or for whatever. Huge part of online programs, trainings, memberships, because it's just a place where you can have community. But also you can build, one thing I actually did when I was running Facebook ads for myself, and I was selling programs, teaching people how to run Facebook ads, was where I gave away something for free. It was like a free training, and then they'd get their freebie, they'd be on my email list, but they'd also get into a free group, and that worked really, really well. It's you're not in there all of the time as the person who owns it, but you do contribute and give value, as Paul was saying. But it's a great way of building community, and I think at the end of the day that's what social media is all about. It's about serving the people who are actually giving it time from their day to follow you or to listen to you. do. So
Yeah, and I think it's about relevancy. You know, I want
Yeah.
people to follow me who are interested in me and what I have to say. The others, you know, I don't care so much.
Yeah, and quality. Another thing I would say is quality is really important. I mean, I'm in some really, really big groups from the US. Kimra Luna, for example. There's another crowd, Screw the 9 to 5. Like, they're great free groups. There's like 30,000 people in them. But like with anything, you see the regular contributors, the people who are in there all the time and so on. But they do provide value. Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to move on to one very special launch that I have. So today is a very special day for me. I am launching the JSB Talks Digital vlog. If podcasting wasn't enough for JSB, the former broadcast journalist, I decided that I had to get front of screen because I have been ignoring the world's second largest search engine, YouTube, for far too long. And in my world of digital marketing, I like to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So today I am launching JSB Talks Digital, the vlog. Paul, would you do me the honours and lift up my promo sign? I got it from the guys at Snap Printing, and when I collected it this morning, I asked for a sign, but I didn't really ask for a life-size version of JSB, and I have to say, she looks much better than me. Thanks, Paul. So, the JSB Talks Digital vlog is going to be on YouTube on the Digital Training Institute YouTube channel, okay? In the playlist, JSB Talks Digital. Right now, please just go to YouTube, click on Digital Training Institute, and you will see my first vlog, JSB Talks Digital, and it's my introduction. And the second one will be out on Monday. So, as you know, the podcast, you can put that down now, Paul.
Okay.
So as you know, JSB Talks Digital, the podcast, comes out every Friday. But JSB Talks Digital, the vlog, is going to come out every Monday. So when you wake up and you're having your morning coffee or the cup of tea that I like to have, just subscribe and I'll come into your phone. Who doesn't want JSB to come into their phone? You're well trained.
I am.
You got the script.
Thank you.
You read the memo.
Yes,
Thank
I have.
you. Well done. I might invite you back. Okay, we're going to move on. So each week in the show, I give shout outs to people who are remarkable online and worth talking about. However, in this week's show, I wanted to share 3 events that are in my diary for the first quarter of 2017. The Pendulum Summit takes place in the Convention Centre in Dublin on the 11th and 12th of January. I'm going to attempt to unleash the warrior in JSB at this 2-day business event taking place in the capital. Organisers describe it as the world's leading business and self-empowerment summit. So if you want to find out more and maybe join me at it, go to pendulumsummit.com. Social Media Marketing World takes place in San Diego from March 22nd to 24th. I attended the event this year for the very first time, and I'm planning to make a return trip. It really is a wow event with the world's most talented social media practitioners, from content to video, social advertising to tools, and so much more. It also provides for fantastic networking opportunities. And did I mention that they throw a party for delegates on a US military ship? It rocks. It really rocks. And Jenny, I know you've been at it. So if you're interested, log on to socialmediaexaminer.com/SMM World. However, do check out my blog post on page 1 of Google. So if you type in Social Media Marketing World, you get my blog post with the 10 highlights from the 2016 event. Finally, Summit Live UK From Risk to Revolution takes place from March 27th to the 29th in London and has been organised by our good friend Victoria Taylor, a previous guest on this podcast. The event promises to deliver tactics on live and social video, as well as disruptive technologies, and looking at how these 3 elements work together to create a great customer experience. So to find out more, log on to summitliveuk.co.uk. Okay, so I want to finish the show with some tips from the experts in terms of social media. Now, I know I didn't give you the memo on this, guys, but I'm sure you'll be able to take this on. If you had any tips for our viewers on Facebook or listeners on the podcast, what one main tip would you give them? Paul, I'll start with you.
One tip. Okay, I think one of the biggest mistakes that individuals make about social media is that they do make it all about me. I actually like to call it social UDIA. My tip would be listen twice as much as you speak. So it's quite generic, but it's relevant no matter what profile you're on. I mean, look at how we're designed: 2 ears, 1 mouth. So everybody likes to speak about themselves. We're all our favorite topic of discussion. So if you want people to engage with you, ask them what they want. Request information from them. They will tell you. They will absolutely tell you exactly what they're looking for. And then when you match the voids that they're clearly stating, then it looks like you're a perfect match for what they do. And basically sales becomes unnecessary. Sorry, Jenny, but sales will become, if you do marketing properly, if you market correctly, sales is unnecessary because you give them what they're looking for. So put the camera, literally in some cases, back on your audience and ask them what they're looking for.
Turn that camera around, Cormac, to my audience.
And there they are. There they are. Yeah, and that's what I would suggest is take that focus off the kind of the narcissistic sometimes even. But you know what? It's a lot of that advice has been given by experts saying, talk about yourself, post about stuff, give discounts. And you know what? If it did work a few years ago, it certainly doesn't work now. We need to get into the framework of ask people what they're looking for and just serve their needs.
Jenny.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd really just reiterate what Paul is saying. I think it's very easy as well for us. One thing I found when I started using social media was, I had nothing else to post about except for myself. I live out in rural Ireland, so it is sometimes difficult. Definitely curating other people's content, sharing other people's content, commenting on other people's blog posts, support other people. I think managing, this is kind of going into another tip, but I think managing your expectation of how social actually drives sales. It's social selling, it's building relationships. All of that takes time to nurture those relationships. And I think as well, a lot of businesses I see come in and they're all about the new client, the new customer all the time. They forget about the people that they're already doing business with, that they could actually nurture to become their biggest fans, the biggest word spreaders or whatever it is that you want to say about their brand. So look, I always have the mother approach when it comes to social media. Look after people and they'll look after you.
Okay, and I'll give you my JSB tip. And the one thing that I would say is don't let fear paralyze progress. The social networks are always changing. They're adding new features. There's always a new red shiny ball that we want to go and touch. Just upskill yourself. Invest in yourself. Invest in knowledge. And let the social networks do the work for you, because guess what? They have the communities built. And I would like to take this opportunity. Oh, Santa, are you still on the line?
I'm still here.
Santa, do you have any social media tips for anyone? I don't want to exclude you in this conversation.
Oh, I think what Paul and Jenny have said is so right. And I think you have to be nice on social media and, and be your customers' friends and be all your, talk to the people that are on your social networks. It really, really does help. And it makes them feel very, very much included in any conversations.
Santa, that's my favourite tip of the day. Thank you so much. And can I just extend a very Merry Christmas from my house to yours and to Mrs. Claus, to all the elves. And will you tell Corey DigiElf that JSB will be on Twitter? And if he's not following me already, I'm at Tweets by JSB, because I'd really like him on the podcast in the new year.
No problem. We'd be delighted to come back on. We're kind of busy at the moment, but we will try and schedule some time in with you, because this is great fun. We love doing these type of shows.
Thank you so much, Santa. Merry Christmas, and hang on the line, because we're going out with a Christmas tune, and I leave you an extra couple of rich tea on Christmas Eve. How's that?
Okay, and happy Christmas to you, to Paul and to Jenny, and to all the boys and girls out there. Happy Christmas from Santa. Ho, ho, ho!
Thank you for tuning into my Christmas special, either on this podcast or on Facebook Live. If you want to read more about what I've discussed on the show, log on to digitaltraining.ie and click on podcasts. I'll have links to everything there. Thanks to my guests for joining me on the show, Jenny Brennan, Paul O'Mahony, who now I've finally met. You're okay.
Thanks.
You're a good guy. And of course, Santa Claus. A big thank you to Owen, who produced, and to Cormac, who is behind the camera. He can't pan to himself. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke. Happy Christmas, everyone.
JSB Talks Digital.